Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. On the podcast today is Julie Cappiello, president of Voters for Animal Rights. Julie joined as a board member in 2018 and became the president just this year. She's agreed to talk to me today about the issues surrounding carriage horses in New York City. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. And, the reason that you're here and the timeliness of it, to be frank, really, really sucks. But I'm really excited to kind of dive into this conversation with you. It's actually something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. But it just seemed really urgent with what recently happened in New York. So, for those of my listeners that don't know, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened about a week or two ago? And then, unfortunately, we're going to have to give a sad update today as well. So go ahead.
So last week on June 9th, we had an incident where Dennis, a carriage horse, collapsed and died in Central Park. The partial necropsy, which was released by the TWU, which oversees the carriage industry, said that he died from ingesting Japanese yew that was in Central Park. It's a plant in Central Park. But the video that was sent to us, you can see him having his last breaths. You can see the witnesses around him trying to get the carriage off of him as he laid in the street. And you could see the witnesses also crying. There was a lot of tears happening. That's a very heartbreaking thing to witness when you're just trying to walk through Central Park or walk home. And it's just the video has been shared widely throughout social media. Millions of people have seen it, and millions of people are rightfully upset about it, and are taking action to ban horse carriages because we know that it's an industry that is harmful to horses and harmful to people, and we need to see New York City Council pass Riders' Law.
Yeah, the video is devastating. I mean, I struggled to watch it. I teared up when I did watch it because I think when you're watching anything suffer to the level that that horse was clearly suffering, it's devastating. And it's really, really hard to see. Um, and unfortunately, our interview is even more timely because a couple of hours ago, the public was made aware that there was another carriage horse incident just today, literally just this afternoon. So, for those that don't know, because today we're recording this on June 17th, it's about quarter after 7 in the evening on Eastern time. And a couple of hours ago, a news was released that a carriage horse bolted, as horses can sometimes do if they are fearful of something, if they get spooked, just because horses can bolt because they're sentient beings. And the carriage turned over, and a teenager is in critical condition with a head injury in the hospital, presumably fighting for his life. Uh, so there are a lot of risks. Obviously, we know about the risks to horses in this, but obviously there are some risks with people participating in this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the way that VFAR views the carriage horse ban, what that might look like, and yeah, let's start there.
Voters for Animal Rights actually started because we were working on the carriage horse ban in another organization. So the founder, Allie Taylor, and I started Voters for Animal Rights because we knew that we needed to not just focus on the horse carriage industry, but we needed to expand our efforts and still include the horse industry, just expand to other animals. So that's really what started VFAR, was the passion for ending the carriage industry. And that is something that we've seen time and time again be dangerous to people. We've seen incidents where horses are dropping dead. We've seen incidences where horses are hitting into taxi drivers and people driving in Columbus Circle. And it's just a consistent problem in New York City. And that's something that we really take to heart. We have been working on this for over 10 years. I've personally been working on this issue for over 15 years. And what we do is we connect anyone who is willing to speak with their city council member, to get on a meeting with the city council member, to give them a call. We work to connect those people. We're the bridge between everyday New York residents and their city council members to protect animals. So we have tools in our arsenal that allow us to have people send emails, have people call, have people do meetings or attend lobby days, is something that we try and do as much as possible, so that New York City council members are meeting with their constituents. Constituents are talking about the industry that they want to ban and what matters to them. And what matters to them is protecting animals. And we are all volunteer. We do this on our nights, on our weekends. It's not something that we get paid to do. It's just something that we do because we know the animals need us, and we are uh, incredibly effective, if I do say so myself, for such a all volunteer organization of 3.5 people. So
So I would agree. You're very effective. I had an opportunity to speak with Allie on this podcast, and I learned so much about the work that you guys do. And so, what do we know about the history a little bit of carriage horses in New York City? I mean, presumably it's been around for decades and decades.
it's been around since the park opened. So, obviously we started with transportation with, carriage horses as a way for us to get around and means before cars. But when the park opened, it was really a way for wealthy New York City elites to show off their horses. And Central Park was actually designed with carriages in mind, so that you can have a specific view of Central Park. So it was like the 1860s, I want to say, around that time. But we know with any industry and with any city, as the city evolves, the industry needs to evolve alongside of it. And the city is just absolutely a problem for horses. Just it's not a place where horses need to be anymore. It's not a place where they should be anymore. They shouldn't be in our traffic. They shouldn't be in Central Park. We've evolved to use cars. We've evolved even pedicabs as a way of like sightseeing. We don't need prey animals in the one of the loudest cities in New York.
So this carriage horse ban has been talked about forever. I mean, as long as I can remember, even before getting into animal advocacy in any real way. What is the opposition? Are we talking about a situation where, council members are just, not really worried about it because they're not hearing from their constituents that they care about it, which is something that Senator Piscitano talked to us about when I had him on the podcast. It's not that it's not a bipartisan issue, it's just that it's not brought up enough, kind of. Or do we have active opposition against the banning of carriage horses? And if so, like what does that look like?
Yeah, there's definitely opposition. So the TWU, which is the Transit Workers Union, they oversee the carriage drivers. They represent the carriage drivers, and they are an incredibly powerful union in New York City. So the council members really listen to them. And one thing that is the missing piece of all of this is that TWU has refused to sit down with Voters for Animal Rights to find a middle ground on how to end the industry. We don't want to put people out of work, but we know that there is no way that this industry can exist with the way that it's going. It can't exist in New York City for the safety of the drivers, the safety of the horses, the safety of New Yorkers, but we need to find a way to transition that so that the workers are not put on the unemployment line at the end of the day. So Voters for Animal Rights has been trying and trying and trying, and the invitation is still open for the TWU to sit down with us and figure out what the end of the industry will look like, because it will end one way or another, and we don't want the drivers to be left behind. Another thing is that even though the carriage drivers are represented by the union, they don't get union benefits. So they don't have health care, they don't have paydays off, like any of that. So they're represented by the union without the union benefits that they deserve. So when we were talking about Rider's Law, which was just reintroduced last week as well, that has significant increase in the potential salary for carriage drivers if they were to transition out of this industry and into something else. Upwards of 70,000 was what Councilmember Chris Marte had said, he is the lead sponsor on that bill. And that's a significant increase. They hover around $40,000 a year now, which is very in flux based on suspension days with extreme weather or possible events happening in New York City parks where they can't be out for the carriage rides because there's no way to get to them. I have a feeling, I haven't looked into this, but I have a feeling that there's going to be an issue with all of the Knicks parades happening and things like that.
Right.
Like they might not be able to be out for that. So when they're not working, those carriage drivers lose money.
Mhm.
That's not great for them. So we want to make sure that we want to make sure that that is a good transition, that they are moving towards something where they have a great salary and horses are not being put in stressful, abusive situations.
So it sounds like you guys have really come up with some excellent workable talking points for the people who are employed by this industry. What do you guys envision for the horses if a ban goes through? Because me personally, I kind of see this, and maybe this is uh, the pessimistic side of me, but I kind of see this and I go, okay, well, if the people who are owning these horses, you know, don't care enough about them to make sure that they're not dying of exhaustion in the middle of the street in the summertime, then as soon as we take that ability to use the horse as a commodity, as soon as we take that opportunity away from them, they're really not going to give a damn about their well-being. So what does that look like and how does VFAR plan to help navigate that, as I am certain that you do?
It is something that we have planned for, thankfully. We have worked with over 24 sanctuaries and private homes that are willing to rescue these horses. We have homes and sanctuaries lined up for every single carriage horse, every single one. We also have in Rider's Law, if it were to pass, that these carriage horses cannot be sold to go to another carriage industry and that they cannot be sent to slaughter, which is something that is already happening. When a carriage horse is done with their working job in New York City, the majority of the time they're sold to middlemen who then eventually send them to slaughter. And we've seen a number of horses be saved on the slaughter line, and it's
Mhm.
a pipeline for that, which is not great. We also see a lot of these horses come from farms where they can no longer work on the farm as well. So you're already having an elderly horse that is really struggling already to do any type of work, now pulling carriages in such a loud city, in in traffic where they're dodging cars and getting spooked easily. So that's something that we take very seriously. Our goal is to make sure that the horses are sent to sanctuary, no horses are sent to slaughter, and we stop the pipeline of horses sent to slaughter from the New York City carriage industry.
So, notably, the city of Philadelphia just did their own carriage horse ban. So, talk to me about and honestly, I'm kind of springing this on you a little bit. So, if you don't have a good answer for me, that's okay. But talk to me a little bit about why you think and how you think Philly was able to get that done.
Yeah, well, first off, congratulations to my colleagues at Revolution Philadelphia. Oh my goodness. I'm just gonna start that over. So, so first off, congratulations to my colleagues at Revolution Philadelphia for getting that done. They worked incredibly hard on that. Philly is an incredible city. I love going. I love being there. And something that is different from Philadelphia's carriage industry to New York City's carriage industry is that the last carriage business in Philadelphia actually closed in 2023. So there wasn't any horse carriage industry to actually ban. So it was that industry went bankrupt, or that company went bankrupt, and there was no more horses to regulate. So it was
Gotcha.
a little bit easier, as we have active,
Yeah.
active industry,
Right.
active
Well, it
drivers,
was more
owners.
about making sure that it doesn't start up again, it
Exact.
sounds like, right? And more about making sure that it's not something that can come to happen again.
Exactly. It's incredibly hard to stop cruelty when it's already started. That's why Voters for Animal
Mm.
Rights has worked on in New York State banning octopus farming because that's not an industry that has its hold here. So we can stop the cruelty before it starts. So what happened in Philly is the cruelty stopped because the business went out of business. It went bankrupt, and then they were able to get in there and really stop it from starting again, which is incredibly smart and an incredibly great way to get these bans done and across the finish line. Unfortunately, we have 200 carriage drivers and owners who are still working every single day in New York City, that we're up against.
A lot of people who don't live in New York and who don't necessarily know the ins and outs of the way that these political systems work to get these things done are potentially under the assumption that the mayor has say in this, right? I mean, I certainly
And
was before I talked to Allie a while ago. Um, it's not the mayor, is it? It's the council.
it's the New York City Council, yes. Unfortunately, we saw with the de Blasio administration that you cannot ban an industry outright. You have to go through the legal process of having a bill go through the New York City Council, pass the New York City Council in a vote, and then be signed by the mayor. Now, the mayor has some authority here, like he can put in some enforcement measures through executive orders or things like that, but he cannot ban the industry outright. So that's something that we see a lot in our comment section, especially with the collapse and death of Dennis, and now this, unfortunate incident where a teenager is in critical condition. We see it in our comment section all the time, saying, Mayor Mamdani, we want you to do something about it. And unfortunately, while the mayor has great power in New York City, that's not one of the things that he can do. But he has consistently called for an end to this industry and for a just transition for the workers, which is exactly where VFAR is. We want the same thing.
So I have a suggestion. And so I don't think that I have this, incredibly broad, listenership, but I know that I have probably a decent amount of listeners that are not a constituent of New York City Council, right? So for those that are not constituents of New York City Council, I have a suggestion. If Mayor Mondami is the person that you want to reach out to, maybe we ask if he can use his influence to bring the union to the table.
That would be fantastic. Yes, that is
I
something
mean,
that
I
we
mean, he's a powerful, charismatic guy. He's riding that Nixwin high. I mean, I say, listen, Mandami, make a phone call, get him to the table, make sure that they're having this conversation, right?
Mhm. Yes, and that's it. That's exactly what we want. And he seems to be on the same page of I want to get all the stakeholders in a room and have a conversation about it, because the industry does need to end. He knows the industry needs to end.
The previous administrations have known that this needs to end. Mondami has said publicly that he knows that it needs to end. It sounds like we need to get some of these two opposing forces in a room to figure out, okay, if we're all in agreement, if this is potentially have bipartisan support on the council, how do we make this end in a way that is going to be the best solution for the horses and the best solution for the people? Because we certainly, nobody that is doing carriage horse rides is as far as like selling them and operating them is a millionaire. They're working their butts off too. They're trying to live in this economy and heck in New York City, which is insane to live in. I don't know how you guys do it. So we just need everybody to get to the table to get this done.
Yeah, and that's been something that we've been trying to accomplish, and we've been, again, calling on the TWU president, John Samuelson, to do that, to just sit down in a room with us and pull up a chair and start that conversation. In no way are we going to get it done over coffee for an hour. It's obviously gonna be a long process. And the carriage industry knows that we're not going away. This issue is not going away, and it's a headache to them. They have to spend thousands of dollars on lobbyists, thousands of dollars trying to protect their brand image. And when an incident like today, or like what happened with Dennis happened, or an incident with Ryder in 2022, they have to rebuild their brand and try and say that they're not harming horses when we can see that these animals are dropping dead on the street, or are hitting into taxi cabs, or simply harming individuals, harming people. And that's something that we really need to start. So it's been the TWU versus the animal rights activists for over a decade, with the New York City Council and the mayor in the middle the entire time. And the middle, the New York City Council is hearing both sides and is trying to figure out a solution that would work for both sides. But when you don't have both sides in the same room with the mediator, that would be the New York City Council, or even the mayor's office, it's really hard for people to kind of come to some sort of compromise. And to be clear, that compromise isn't going to be, oh, the horses can work extra hours, but in cooler hours or things like that. The compromise is going to be, what does the transition out of the industry look like for the carriage drivers and even the carriage owners who own the stables in Chelsea? What is that going to look like for those people? Because again, the industry will end. We're not going away. We're a thorn in their side. It's just, when is it going to end? How is it going to end? And will the carriage drivers be left behind?
So, how can people who are not constituents of New York City but are impassioned about this, how can they help? And sorry for the inconsistent noises you guys are hearing on the podcast, but my new foster puppy, Kelly, has decided to climb into my lap, so she is joining us today. So if you want to see a really really cute puppy, make sure you watch this episode on YouTube. But how can people not just sit in your comments on social media, right? How can people actually support this? Who can they? Because they're not constituents of New York City, but can they reach out to the council members? Can they reach out to the president of the union? What does that look like to offer you guys some support from all over the country?
I would say, if you're not a resident of New York City, please do not contact the council. The council,
Okay.
any legislators really want to hear from their constituents. They don't want to hear from
Okay.
outside individuals unless you've been impacted by the carriage horses in some way, shape, or form, like the passengers today. Um, if they are tourists, we don't know for sure, but if they are tourists and they were impacted, that would mean, yes, please go reach out to the city council with your story. But one thing that you could do, which is really impactful, is signing our petition at vfar.org/ban horse carriages NYC. We can keep you updated on the ongoings of what's happening in New York City on the horse carriages. And then another thing is, again, we're an all volunteer organization. We're doing this day and night. A lot of the times, the money is coming out of our pockets for signs or events and things like that. And we would really appreciate any donation, any like anything that you could do to support us, whether that is, again, donating, even $5 helps. Following us on social media, sharing our posts, and getting the word out there is really impactful as well. And if you do live in New York City, definitely contacting your legislators and urging them to pass Rider's Law.
So in the show notes is going to be a link to the petition. It's
Okay.
also going to be a link to donate to Voters for Animal Rights. And I will also put in a link for, if you are in New York City, how you can find your legislator to make sure that you are contacting the right person to get them to vote for Ryder's Law. So I will include all of that in the show notes. So, Julie, this dog,
I love
she's
her.
she's really trying me today. So is there anything else that you would like to leave us with this afternoon before we move on to the foster spotlight? Is there anything else that you would like to, you know, talk about that you wish the public knew about this issue or animal welfare in general?
One thing that I really want people listening to know is that we wouldn't be alerted to these incidents happening all across the city if it wasn't for people documenting and sending them to us. So the incident with Dennis on June 9th, we were able to get a statement out and push people to signing our petition. And we had over 5,000 New Yorkers send emails to the New York City Council, which is incredible. That's incredible. And
That's
that
amazing.
it's all because people on the ground are sending us these things as it's happening. The incident today, we were able to get something up today and have people contact their New York City Council members because we're able to bring awareness to that. So something that we get asked a lot or commented a lot is, why aren't you helping the horse do something? And filming is doing something. Filming and sending it to us is doing so much more than people realize. If we can get the word out that this is happening, the more we can get the more we can put pressure on TWU to sit down with us and have a conversation, the more we can show the New York City Council that this is just not a sustainable industry, and the more we can also document what is happening, how many carriages are hitting into taxis, how many horses are dropping dead. This is something that's incredibly hard for us to track because the industry is very secretive about this. We don't know when horses are passing away from colic in the stables. We don't know if a horse is, collapsing in Hell's Kitchen if there's no video or photographic evidence. So the passersby, if you see something happening, take a photo, take a video, send it to us so we can get the word out.
Pretty sure See Something, Say Something started in New York City.
It did.
So that's where we're going to leave that today.
It did.
And you know what? I don't want to pull from the importance of the action that we're asking people for today. So I'm actually going to forego a foster spotlight today, because I think that it's just so important that instead of sharing any information about an animal that needs rescued, we really need to get as many people as possible to sign the petition so that we can make sure that we are getting more than one animal rescued. So, Julie, can you please remind people that in addition to checking out the links in the show notes, how they can connect with VFAR?
Yeah, you can sign our petition to ban horse carriages at vfar.org/ban horse carriages NYC. You can donate at vfar.org/donate. Or if you're a New Yorker, you can send an email to your New York City Council member at vfar.org/horses. The address that you put in will connect you with your council member, so you won't be sending it to someone who doesn't represent you.
And how about any social media that you want people to follow and check out for Voters for Animal Rights?
Yes, please follow us at Voters for Animal Rights on Instagram, Facebook, Threads. We're on Twitter. We are at the Animal Voters, and those are our main platforms. Instagram is one of our most active platforms, so if you can follow us there and hit the links in our bio, you'll be able to follow us everywhere else too.
Awesome. Well, Julie, again, I mentioned this when we were not recording, but I reached out to Allie either June 9th or June 10th and said, it's time, we got to talk about this. Get me connected with somebody who can talk about this with me right now, to get this done. And I will be, when you guys are hearing this, it's a week later and we're almost a month out from the incident happening. But it's so timely and it's so important that we kind of try to strike while the iron's hot, while emotions are high in this situation, because even though emotions are high right now, this is an ongoing issue and we don't want to lose focus on that. So I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I just want to remind my listeners, you can connect with the podcast at the Foster Files Podcast on Instagram. If there's somebody else I should be talking to, like Julie, please email me at the Foster Files Podcast at Gmail. But Julie, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for highlighting this issue and the work that Voters for Animal Rights does. And thank you to every listener who is about to follow us and take action. I cannot wait for the day when the horses are off New York City streets.
How about this? After you pop champagne, nurse your hangover, and then come back on and we'll talk about that together, okay?
That would be fantastic. You'll be my first call.
Yay! Well, I probably won't be your first call. That I understand. I'll be your. Let me be your first like media call out. You know what I mean?
I will
After you get all
forward
the big, shake the hands and kiss the babies, then you can reach out to me and say, "Hey, Kelly, I want to tell your 40 listeners about about the ban going in effect."
I will probably have more people reaching out to me than my first call, so that would be
Yes, you
I
will.
the most amazing thing would be the minute their band is getting a call from Allie Feldman Taylor, who is the founder of VFAR, who I've worked with for
Yep.
15 years on this issue. When that happens and she gives me a call, I will be we'll probably cry. We'll probably cry because it's been a long 15 years.
I'm sure that it has. So, thank you again for your time today. And as a reminder to everybody out there, be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals. All right. So, we are jumping back on, Julie and I. We finished this episode where we're talking about the importance of banning carriage horses and the best practice of carriage horses. And then Julie and I were chatting, and as we were chatting, we got some really unfortunate news that the teenager that was involved in the incident just this afternoon, about quarter of 3 in the afternoon on June 17, 2026, has died as a result of his injuries. And, Julie, I'm gonna mute my mic and put my foster puppy in the hallway because she's barking a lot, and I don't want to take away from the absolute devastation uh, of what we just learned. So why don't you tell me your thoughts on this?
This is absolutely heartbreaking. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that this shouldn't have happened and this wouldn't have happened if the industry didn't exist. Um, an 18-year-old went to Central Park to enjoy time with his family and had a really tragic accident after a horse spooked and lost his life from it. And it's there's almost no words. This is the first time since I've been working on this issue that someone has died from a carriage horse related incident in New York City. And it is just heartbreaking. My heart goes out to his family, to everyone that loved him and knew him. That is just, it's unreal to think that you're taking your family for a ride in Central Park and to enjoy the beautiful day that was today. We had great weather and things like that. And then to have your child pass away after something like this is just unbelievably tragic. Um,
The news outlets are reporting that this horse that spooked today has only been in the city for 6 weeks doing this work. And I think that it's so important to reiterate what you said earlier in our conversation, which is these horses don't belong in an environment like this. And these horses are coming from environments that there's no other environment they could be coming from that's louder or as loud as Central Park in Manhattan. That's just not a possibility, right? So they're coming from a quieter environment. They're coming from a different environment. And there's so many stimuli, so many noises, so many things. And, I'm already seeing language in the article that I'm reading. And I'll post the article in the show notes for those that want to view it. But I'm seeing language in the article that, they're looking at it and going, oh, the carriage driver should never leave the carriage. And while we can take steps and, have steps in place to try to make this as safe as possible, you will not ever be able to eliminate the fact that these prey animals, as you said, because horse are prey animals, are going to have moments where they are not desensitized to this situation, especially 6 weeks in. Um, so I can't imagine what this family is feeling. You know, my thoughts are with them and that kid's loved ones. And I'm sure a lot more information about this is going to come out um, by the time this podcast posts. Um, but to have this conversation and to hear this absolutely devastating news in real time, it just reiterates how important the work is that you guys are doing. This can never happen again and never should happen again ever for any reason.
It really shouldn't, and we know that the TWU is saying that it's the driver's fault. The driver shouldn't have been that far away from the horse, but we've seen this happen time and time again where the carriage driver is on the carriage holding the reins. It doesn't matter if he was a hand's, an arm's length away. This could happen any time when you have 1,000-pound animals that spook. And it's just there are no words. There are no words when a tragedy like this happens. There are feelings. There's a lot of feelings going on right now, and these are my emotions in raw time. This shouldn't it just shouldn't have happened. This family is going to go through something unbelievable tonight and the upcoming days while they're grieving, and um it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened.
I think that I kind of want to close with, you know, animal welfare issues are human issues. They're community issues. You cannot advocate for one without advocating for the other. And I think that this thing that we've discovered together right now and that what we're feeling right now um, really exemplifies that and understanding that taking care of animals does also take care of people and the way that we treat animals in our society and in our communities is a reflection of who we are as a people. Um, so, Julie, I want to tell you because I know you're feeling a weight right now. I don't know you. We just met for the first time today, but to have worked on this issue for over a decade and to know that had you guys just been heard by some of these people that need to hear you, this might not have happened. I'm sure you're carrying that weight heavy right now. And so I'm so sorry for the loss that you're also feeling in this moment.
It is it is a lot to take in. My emotions are nowhere near that family's emotions, but it is
Of course.
you hate when you're screaming about something and you know that you're right, and then what happens, and you're trying to prevent it the entire time. That is as much as I know that I've tried my hardest and my colleagues have tried their hardest to ban this industry, and protect people, it doesn't feel like enough when something like this happens. Um, but it will continue fueling that fight to make sure that it does not happen ever again. He is the first and will be the last.
So if you haven't already, by the time you're listening to this, if you haven't already gone to the show notes and clicked to sign the petition, do it right now. Do it right now. Not if you're driving, please, not if you're driving. But the second you're done driving, before you scroll on Instagram, before you do doom scroll, before you check your text messages, before you make that next phone call, please go to the link in the show notes, click on the link, sign the petition, and let's all work to get this done together. Julie's been doing the work for 15 years. You can take 15 seconds. So all right, Julie. Listen, thank you again for coming on. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And my heart bleeds for everybody involved in this situation tonight. I'm so sorry. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
And everyone, especially today, be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals.